Hello, everyone. I'm back from Jamaica over mostly whatever viral respiratory illness just wrecked our house. And we're back at it here at the Author Podcast, though, as you can tell, the congestion's not fully gone yet. So, as you can see, I redid the studio and brought it in for a tighter shot because, let's be honest, you don't care about all this random stuff back here or on the shelves over there. With this awesome glowing skull back from my anatomy class 20 years ago. And there's much less ocean noise here, unfortunately, than there was down in Ocho Rios. It's good to be home, so let's do episode 6. So as I said, this is episode 6. The opening rant is going to explain some soul searching about where I want to go with the podcast. And it's called the Author Podcast, right? Because I'm an author and I like entertaining people and I like to play on words in the Golden Thor. But the world's serious enough. We need to escape the bad news for a bit and lose ourselves in something enjoyable once in a while. So as you can see, I've got 8 books out. I can't see them all there, but we'll link later. And they can help you escape for that. Find me on Amazon, mainly medical thrillers. But I did add Sacrificial Touch, which is my most recent one, personal favorite. It's Christian fiction medical thriller, and I think you'll enjoy my books. Go ahead and take a look. They're free and Kindle Unlimited. But I'm also a practicing ER doctor for over 20 years, and I have a lot of insight into the practice and administration of medicine. And as you can tell, I'm pretty opinionated, and I want to share those insights with you today. So we're going to spend most of the video on book-related material, then we'll move into alcohol use, and we'll end with my thoughts on school and work notes. You can imagine where I'm going to go with those. But I'm in a very busy season of life right now, so there's going to be a lot fewer pop-ups, a lot less B-roll in the next few episodes. But once we hit May, I'll bump up the production quality again. Bear with me until then. For now, it's just going to be me. Here we go. So the first thing we're going to talk about that's book-related is book bans, right? Such a hot topic. Everything's getting banned. There's been a trend in some states to more closely monitor the books that are available in school libraries and assess whether they are age-appropriate for the children who have access to them. Florida started a lot of the news with House Bill 1467. Now, this law requires that any library or instructional book be reviewed by a district employee with a valid educational media specialist certificate. I guess that's a thing. But the goal is to remove pornographic or sexually inappropriate content for the particular age group, and to look at discussions of race for appropriateness. On its face, that seems reasonable, right? We don't want books teaching racism or providing age-inappropriate content to children. Now, when they look at a book and it's reviewed and they found not to be appropriate, it's removed from the school library. Or sometimes it's moved from the elementary section to the middle school or the high school section. But even moving it from one section to another has been referred to as a ban by authors in the media. Now, I'm sorry, putting a book on a different shelf is not a ban. And even removing it from a library is not a ban. But some districts have required reading lists in their curricula, meaning teachers have to include a particular book in their syllabus. Now, one example that caused an issue was To Kill a Mockingbird. It deals heavily with racism, right? It's just part of what the book talks about and what the culture at the time. And it was felt to be a pretty uncomfortable topic for some, both on each side of it, but especially since it has the N-word in it. A district removed it as a required part of the curriculum because of that. Now, teachers could still choose to teach the book, but they were no longer required to teach it. But guess how this was reported? Book ban. Now, the original text of To Kill a Mockingbird used the N-word. Notice I'm not saying it. One, that's not me, but that word has the power to cancel people, even when used in a benign way, like singing along with a published rap song, like this poor high school quarterback, Marcus Stokes. Now, I tried to search for the song that he sang in his social media post, but literally couldn't find it, despite specifically searching for his name and what song did he sing. I clicked on 40 articles, and none of them mentioned what actual song it was. And he wasn't using a slur. He was singing the lyrics to a song he enjoyed, and they canceled him and ruined his life. So if that kid can be smeared nationally, lose his scholarship to play football simply for singing a song with the correct lyrics, why should we be forcing kids to read a book that contains the same word? What if they accidentally read it out loud? They could be canceled and attacked. So the district decides to let teachers choose whether they want to teach the book or not, and recommends against using this particular book in its class, and that's considered banning the book. Even though they can still choose to teach it, and kids can bring it in, and kids read it, it's still banned, right? Now, all of these books that are supposedly banned can still be brought to school. Libraries do not have unlimited space. They can't carry every book. Literally none of my books are in libraries. I don't consider them banned. They're right there. Go to Amazon, buy them. These parents could buy a book and give it to their kid, and he could take it to school. But let's look to a more recent one, Julianne Moore's book, Strawberry Girl. Now, admittedly, I haven't read this particular children's book. It's not my genre. My kids are older. It seems to be about a kid who has freckles and feels stigmatized, then learns to live with it. Kind of sounds like that Dr. Seuss book, right? The Starbelly Sneetches. But again, I haven't read it. It's just what comes to mind. Now, this book was flagged for review, apparently, as part of the new military's DEI rules, so they pulled it off the shelves in military libraries until a review took place. But of course, in that process, the author posted on social media that her book was banned. and giant, everybody grabs their pitchforks, right? It's not banned. It's flagged for review because they want to make sure it complies. They're being cautious to make sure it complies with the regulations. I'm sure it'll pass and it'll go back on the shelves. And even if it's decided to not put the book back on the shelf, it won't be banned. It will just not be made available for free. The problem that I see with all of this is perceived victimhood by authors who are adults and on behalf of inanimate objects like books. Now, let's be honest. No child is harmed by not having a particular book on the shelf in a library or taught a specific book in a 10th grade English class. There's millions of books that are out there that kids can learn. Kids can likely read any of these banned books in their public library, or the parents can buy them on Amazon or anywhere else. But on the other hand, some children may actually be harmed by exposure to inappropriate content for their age. The concept of receiving an answer before you're ready for the question applies here. Now, there's a reason we have ratings on movies that show adult content. Now, the same obvious standard should extend to books made available to children in public schools. Now, the risk here is exposing kids who are not yet ready for graphic discussions of sex. The risk is not in delaying discussions of sexual intercourse, sexual identity, or racism through the use of a particular book. Let's focus on the most at-risk people here, all right? And that'd be young kids. So everyone, please calm down. Schools can teach, parents can fill in the social learning that they like. Everybody graduates complete. Okay, moving on like we always do with the Author Podcast, let's go into a new topic, alcohol use. So you may be wondering, why are we talking about alcohol use on the Author Podcast? How does this relate to books? Well, I have a pre-order for my 9th book out that's set to release on May 1st, and the book isn't done yet. I still need to write 10,000 words, revise it, send it to the beta of the team, proofread, format it, and publish it. So I need to be productive between now and May 1st. Guess what destroys my productivity? Alcohol. Once the evening rolls around and I have a glass of wine or bourbon, that's it for the day. Game over. Nothing else will get accomplished. Now, I don't have time right now in my life for that lack of productivity. I need to maximize my waking hours. And chances are, if you drink alcohol, you've had occasions where you drink too much, right? It just happens. And chances are, if you've done that, you've also regretted it a time or two because you don't feel well the next day. Or maybe you did something while drinking you wish you hadn't. Maybe you said something that caused a problem. Or you got into an argument. Or you broke something. Or you got a DUI. Or arrested. Or something else worse. Or, as many of my patients do, they end up in the ER. So I'll admit it, some drunk patients actually can be pretty entertaining in the ER, but ultimately it's usually sad. Now, often there's a group of people that come in, whether family or friends, to support the drunken person who's got a laceration or an ankle injury or something worse. And usually, if it's not serious, they're all having a great time. But nearly every one of those people that I see wouldn't be an ER patient had they not been drinking. So is this evidence of an alcohol problem or a problem related to alcohol? Is there a difference? People don't like it when I ask that because they feel kind of stigmatized and it's like, boom, yes, reality check. So if you do drink alcohol, I'd like you to make a mental list of all the positive things it brings to your life. I think it's easy to say relaxation, right? To distress after a hard day at work. But what else would you put on the list? Feel free to pause the video right now and consider it for a while. All right. Now, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying it's wrong to have a glass of wine in the evening or sip a nice glass of bourbon. The problem comes when you refill the glass or you pour the glass 3 times as large as it needs to be. Then you refill that one too. Or you hope your spouse doesn't finish theirs so you'll get that extra one too. So if you're at risk of doing that, maybe don't go down the road. Don't have that first glass. Now our kids are watching. It's well known that alcoholism is a generational curse. I'm not sure whether that's just learned behavior or genetic, but it's probably a combination of both. So addiction-based personality traits extend beyond drinking and often commingle. Drinking, smoking, gambling, sexual promiscuity. If this runs in your family, you really need to be vigilant and protect yourself and your family from it. We want the best for our kids, right? Which means we need to model the best self that we can be. Did you know that 15% of people aged 12 to 20 had a drink in the last month? That's shocking. Now, I found out later in life that one of my junior high school teachers, who I actually really liked, was an alcoholic back when he was my teacher. Now, when I met him later, he told me that he could tell which kids were drunk in class. This is in junior high school. Now, I don't think this is an issue that only affects older people, right? It's clearly not. So talk to your younger kids about it. But take a look at social media trends. It's cool to be a mom who drinks wine. It's almost a meme now. And this exploded when COVID hit. And now as an ER doc, I'm seeing them show up in the ER. They're 35, have several kids, and now they're alcoholics, just from drinking wine. They didn't see it coming. It was all fun and games, and now they have a problem and they need help. Problem is, all their friends drink the wine right along with them. So again, don't get me wrong. I love alcohol, and that's probably the problem. I love drinking. I love hanging out with friends and drinking at the beach and the pool. at someone's house at a game in Jamaica. But I also see the negatives and realize it's not without risk. Now, our pastor in January challenged us to do a 21-day fast of something. It wasn't specifically alcohol, it could be your phones, television, like anything that you consider to potentially be a negative. So my wife and I chose alcohol. So we made it 18 days until an illness ran through the house, just like it does now. And since everyone felt awful, a glass of wine sounded really good one night. And then, okay, well, you broke the streak. Let's go ahead and start drinking again. So we had some light consumption for about 10 days until our recent friend's trip to Jamaica, which you can see in episode 5 of the Author podcast. But like most all-inclusive trips to tropical resorts, we drank a lot and had a lot of fun. Now, was our fun enhanced by alcohol? I don't know. I've had a lot of fun while not drinking too, even with the same people. Now, alcohol does lead to behaviors we might not do had we not been drinking. It's quite disinhibiting, and I think that's why many of us drink. We want to do those things, but we know we're too reserved without a little liquid courage, as it's called, to do it. So in effect, alcohol is a gateway drug that unlocks the behaviors that our conscious self stops us from doing. So if you do drink alcohol, I challenge you to guess your blood alcohol concentration. People claim that 0.08 or 80 is too low for DUI cutoff, but honestly, I think it's too high for those of us who don't drink very often. Tolerance is real. And if you drink 5 drinks a day, you're going to perform way better at 0.08 than if you drink once a week and get to 0.08. I've seen people with levels of 300 that I couldn't tell they've been drinking, and I wouldn't classify them as drunk based on my interaction with them. But I've also seen people with levels of 80 that were clearly drunk. So an arbitrary cutoff for legal purposes doesn't do a lot as far as safety goes on the road. But to do a proper breath test, you really need to not drink any alcohol for about 15 minutes, as it can remain in your mouth and alter the result. You also can't have vomited or belched recently. So find someone with a digital breathalyzer. You can buy them on Amazon and see where you're at. I think you'll be surprised how you feel even while below the legal limit. So just from a personal standpoint, I'm recording this on March 3rd. It's been 21 days since I've had any alcohol, and I don't miss it. I'm sleeping much better. I rarely wake up at night to go to the bathroom, and I'm not doing any late night binge eating anymore. I think my gut health is improving, and I'm much more productive in the evenings. Really knocking these words out, and I think 6,000 words a week for the last 2 weeks, which I wouldn't have done before. So I challenge you to consider abstaining from alcohol for a while. I think you'll notice positive improvements in your quality of life and your relationships. Now, if you're concerned you have a problem with alcohol, seek help. I'm going to link it above, but there's a federal program that can direct you to resources. It's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Give them a call at 800-662-4357. I'll put it in the show notes at the end also. All right, moving on to the final section today. We're going to end with something very near and dear to my heart. Doctor's notes for school or work excuses. I don't know where these started out, but it's time to end them as a routine practice. Ban them from society. Now let me be blunt. There's nothing magical about his doctor's note to excuse an absence. The majority of things that keep a reasonable person out of work or school do not need to be evaluated by a physician. And you know who the reasonable employees are, and you know who the reasonable students are. So schools have policies regarding communicable diseases, right? And they try to protect the other students, which makes sense. So if you have a raging diarrhea episode, don't come to school. If you have a fever and a cough, stay home. But none of these conditions generally require a trip to the doctor. So why does the school require a note from a doctor to make it an excused absence? You're keeping your child home to comply with the school rule and protect the other kids. Yet the school will punish you with the unexcused absence sting. And who wants that on the record? These kids, they want to do well in school. They want to have a good academic history. And unexcused absences don't help. How about we empower the school nurse to excuse absences due to minor illness? Say up to 3-day maximum stint, and the nurse can handle it. Because as it stands now, that parent might send their kid to school to avoid the unexcused absence and thus put other kids at risk of catching the illness. I'm sure you've tried to make an appointment with a pediatrician. They're packed, right? It's so hard to get into a primary care appointment in the short term for an acute illness. But schools want to make it even harder by forcing parents to waste their time and money and increase healthcare costs just to get a note from a doctor that says the kid used to be sick. Why? What's the point? What about the harm caused by the truly ill patients not being able to be seen because the slot was taken for a school note visit? Now, from the school standpoint, they'll say, well, if we don't require the doctor's note, then parents would just lie and say their kid was sick when they didn't come to school. And we can't have that. Well, guess what? A doctor's note doesn't stop that. I see parents who bring their kids to the ER for school notes, the emergency room, emergency department, right? Literally a multi-$1,000 bill for me to say that their kid was sick. And how do I know they were sick? Because the parent told me they were. Exactly the same thing that would happen if the school nurse excused the absence. There is absolutely nothing magical about his doctor's note for school absence. It doesn't ensure truth and establish fact. If a kid misses school for 2 days due to diarrhea, and the parent comes to me for a note, what does the school think I do? Force the parents to prove the kid had diarrhea? Do I need to see physical evidence of fouled clothing, maybe pictures, proof that they used more toilet paper than normal? I mean, all they do is tell me the kid was sick. I evaluate to see if they're still sick, and then say go back to school. Then I give them a note saying the kid was seen and could go back to school. Now, the parents don't bring them in for school notes during the illness, right? They bring them in after the illness has passed and they want to send the kid back to school, as they should. But the doctor visit is worthless at that point, other than to satisfy the absurd requirement of a note. If the school wanted a child evaluated as to whether they were safe to go back to school, that's a different scenario. That's looking forward. But these excused absences and doctor's notes are looking in the rearview. They're not wanting me to clear the kid as safe to return. They want to know it was justified for the kid to have been absent in the first place. And what if I think it wasn't? Johnny had the sniffles and mom kept him home. So they saw a doctor. I didn't think they needed to miss school, but they held him out anyway. Now I'm set up to be the bad guy when I don't write a school excuse, and the parents can trash me on public forums and reviews that by law I'm not allowed to respond to. So I can write a note that he was seen by me at a specific time, but not that he needed to be out of school. And employers, you're not any better. The same goes for you also. Employers know who the good employees are and the ones that don't care about their job and have a horrible work ethic. But my note doesn't change any of that. People will miss several days of work and then come to the ER for a note. They tell me their employer wants me to write a note that says they were sick to cover the last 4 days. How can I possibly attest to that? I didn't see them 4 days ago. I have no idea what they were doing. Maybe they're at the casino. Maybe they're at the river. I don't know. Now, if you come in with a broken arm or an acute illness and need a note moving forward, that's totally different. But if you want a retroactive note, all I can say is that you were seen today and you may go back to work. Now, we can't give you a medical alibi for days we didn't evaluate you. So understand that, employers, stop asking us to do the impossible. Schools, stop using us as your verification service. Trust the parents, or don't, but leave us out of it. So this brings episode 6 of the Author Podcast to a close. Now I challenge you to try an alcohol-free month and see how you feel at the end of it. Did your relationships change? Did your behavior change? Did your weight change? If you didn't like how you feel, go back to drinking. Now, go out and enjoy this beautiful gift of life.